Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the New Era Lions with David Pyke. I am, of course, your host, David Pyke. I just want to be giving everybody out there the merriest of Christmases, whether or not you practice Christmas or not. Also, happy Hanukkah, happy holidays. Making sure you guys are getting a good season's greeting from those of us in the from that are working from Syndicate Sports Detroit, the absolute greatest holiday greeting that we possibly can give to you guys. How is everybody that is out there doing so far today? I hope everyone's been having themselves a really good week. Hopefully the the impending weather of the Siberian wind and cold front isn't getting people down. Hopefully everyone's having themselves a really good week so far, and hopefully everyone's getting ready to practice a good holiday season. Hopefully everyone's doing well. So with that having been said, I figure if nothing else, we should probably, do some just generic information, some generic news before we move into some other things here. So I have listened to Derek on his show quite a couple of times through Syndicate Sports Detroit, such as Spike Kool-Aid. And one of the things that he always does is he'll always talk about, various players in the NFL, especially like when players of some renown or some players that, that had a really good career have had, there's been a, how to put this in a certain way, when a player has passed on. And obviously, the big news of the week is that former All-Pro, All-Star, all-time great running back Franco Harris has officially passed on from us. He's left the earth at 72. We don't have any details yet as to what his cause of death is, but just keep those people, Franco Harris's family, in your thoughts. Make sure that you're thinking about them because, again, when you lose somebody, especially this close to the holidays, it's really impactful for family members. But I'm not just going to stop with Franco Harris. We also need to pay attention to the fact that another running back has also just passed on. Ronnie Hillman, who used to be a running back for the Denver Broncos, won a Super Bowl with them. He also just passed away today after a long battle with cancer. Again, very, very young individual. I think he was only, 31 years old or something like that. So, again, when you lose people, it's hard as it is, but when you lose them around the holidays, it makes it even more difficult. So thoughts, condolences from those of us at Syndicate Sports Detroit. Obviously, thoughts and prayers from myself go out to the families of Franco Harris, Ronnie Hillman. So just trying to make sure that I give some recognition to those guys, make sure that I make it known that I am thinking about them and that we are trying our best as human beings to always be mindful of other people, especially around this time of year. So having given that time to reflect and have condolences for those two individuals, let's move into something a little bit more intriguing in sense of not necessarily talking about death, but let's talk about something that's a little bit more intriguing about what's going on in the NFL right now. So before we go, let's take a look-see here. Patty Grimes asks if I can give a shout-out to his brother, Jason Andrew. Absolutely. Shout-out to Patty Grimes' brother, Jason Andrew. Von D Gaming has a couple of lit emojis. Who's Your Gaddy says, what it do? I think he was in reference to those situations. Patty Grimes asked, didn't Ronnie Hillman also play for the New Orleans Saints? I don't know if he did or didn't, but again, being respectful regardless of the situation. So let's talk about some stuff that's going on in the NFL right now. So the first thing I want to talk about, obviously, is let's talk about something that's directly reflective of the Lions at the moment, which is, let's just talk about it for what it is the Pro Bowl. I know some people are not necessarily as high on the Pro Bowl as others. A lot of people like myself kind of look at the Pro Bowl and they're like, hey, it's nothing more than, a popularity contest for what it is. It's not really real football. It hasn't been a real football game in about, 20-something years because, well, I mean, if you've watched the Pro Bowl game over the last, decade or so, it's been a hard game to watch. It's just not a football game anymore. It's not like back when, you had the players like the Sean Taylors, you'd have Troy Polamalu's. You'd have these guys go out there, and it was actually a football game. They'd go out there and they would be really hitting each other. They would really be playing and making a contest about it. The Pro Bowl hasn't been a game like that in freaking, I would say probably almost 15, 20 years. It's just the Pro Bowl has literally become, for a lot of people, it's almost become kind of a joke of a game. And with the Pro Bowl, they don't even call it the Pro Bowl just specifically anymore. They call it the Pro Bowl games now because, again, they're not playing an actual football game anymore. It's flag football, and then there's individual contests and events that are going to be held throughout the entirety of the Pro Bowl event, so to speak. And that's now what the new Pro Bowl event is, called Pro Bowl games. And the only reason I'm talking about it is not necessarily because I want to diss totally on the Pro Bowl itself. No, it's like, listen, I look at the Pro Bowl, and I'll be honest. I'll be flat out honest with you guys. It's an absolute joke. It's a joke of an event. It's really just, it's not really something anymore that you as fans want to watch. And I realistically have thought about it myself. It's like the only thing I can realistically see this having any value for is the players. And again, if you guys don't know who I am, David Pyke. I'm also Detroit Lions Forum on my own private channel, but I'm working in syndicate with Derek. I literally look at the fact that the Pro Bowl is literally more benefit for the players now than it is for the fans, because the Pro Bowl has gone down vastly in popularity for fans. Like, no fan truly loves the Pro Bowl anymore. And that goes back to what I was saying. It's now considered a joke of a football game amongst some other things. But the thing about it is, when I take a look at this Pro Bowl matchup that we now have, it's like, dude, it's like, I'm thinking first and foremost about the fact that, number one, it's a popularity contest where you get all these players that are voted by fans first and foremost, but then they're also voted by coaches. And then you take a look at who actually, gets to the Pro Bowl. And the Lions obviously only have one player that made it to the Pro Bowl selection, meaning only one player is for sure going to go to the Pro Bowl, which that is, if you guys don't know, though I severely doubt that you wouldn't, is Frank Ragnow, the center. He's absolutely deserved it. He's had himself a really good year. Obviously, he's, in my opinion, the best center, or if not the best, the second best center in the entire football game right now. I think the only one that might be in front of him might be the center for the Eagles right now. That might be the only one that I think has got a better claim to that number one spot in the NFL. But it's like, listen, it's like, you take a look at the other Lions that are not necessarily selections for the Pro Bowl, but, are alternates. You have guys like Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, Jamal Williams, Khalif Raymond was in there, Jason Kabinda, Aiden Hutchinson, and you just keep going down this laundry list of guys. Taylor Decker was also in there. And you go down this list of guys, and I've already talked about why I don't think on my other channel that the Lions didn't get snubbed. And I'll back that up here on this channel. I still don't think that the Lions got snubbed from the Pro Bowl this year. I don't think they seriously got snubbed. I look at what each of the players that we have that, are alternates for the Pro Bowl games. And it's like, listen, you take a look at the players that were brought up in front of them. The only real person that I truly felt was a snub, like I said in my other video, was Jared Goff. The rest of them, it's like, listen, I really think and believe that, St. Brown deserved. I really believe that Penei Sewell deserved. And there's a couple of other guys that you really believe that, but it's like you have to take a look at who was put in front of them versus themselves. And it's like, listen, it's like, Sewell, he's a great right tackle, but part of the problem with the tackles, which also kind of, falls in for Taylor Decker, is they don't do the separate voting by position anymore. It's not like, oh, well, you select like 3 left tackles and 3 right tackles. No. They do everything now by strictly saying tackle, offensive tackle. That's it. So what it does is it lessens the amount of tackles that are realistically going to be selected to go to the Pro Bowl. So it makes it much more of a selective, much more of a restrictive process for that. You take a look at Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown has had an excellent, absolutely just ridiculously excellent second year in the NFL, but it's like You take a look at the guys that are in front of him, it's like, I can't really call it a snubbing because they've all had great years too. And it's like some of them, like Terry McLaurin, he's dealing with two different quarterbacks that he's had to deal with, and he's still playing at a high level. But I take a look at something, and there was something about these Pro Bowl games that I didn't necessarily understand when I sat down and I looked at all the players that quote unquote had been, selected or had been, put up as alternates. And here's what I didn't notice. Did you all notice that the one player that was selected and the other 9 players that were listed as alternates, what were they all have in common except one? Did you all check that out? Did you all catch that? Like, did you all see how every single player that the Lions had either as alternates to the Pro Bowl games or had actually been selected to the Pro Bowl games, all but one player had something in common? I don't know if anyone else noticed this because I didn't notice it at first. And here's what it is. Every single player that was selected to the Pro Bowl games for the Lions or was an alternate listed as a Pro Bowl games for the Lions, they're all offense. There's only one player in the entirety of the players that were selected by the Lions or are listed as alternates for the Lions that is defense. That one player is Aiden Hutchinson. Now, what does that say about the Lions right now? Well, number one, it says that the Lions are getting extensively much more representation and are getting much more valued for their offensive achievements than they are for their defense. What does that tell us as Lions fans? Well, this is what it tells us. Number one, it tells us that if you thought that the Lions were going to draft offense this year, that's not going to happen. When you've got not only the fans, but the coaches of the NFL and other people that work as NFL executives thinking that, hey, the Lions, they have a really great offense. We're gonna select 3 of their offensive linemen for either going to the Pro Bowl games or be alternates. Jared Goff is an alternate. You've got 2 wide receivers listed as alternates. You've got a running back listed as an alternate. You've got all of this offensive firepower that's listed as alternates or selected to go to the Pro Bowl games, but you've only got one defensive player, and that's literally who your number 1 overall draft pick was for the Lions at the start of last year's draft, Aiden freaking Hutchinson. Jeff Okudah didn't get a nomination or a nod as an alternate. Kirby Joseph, even though he led the fan voting for being a safety, apparently the coaches didn't value him because he didn't even make it as an alternate. Malcolm Rodriguez, who has been an absolute darling stalwart ever since he got to Detroit, he didn't make it as far as an alternate. So what it tells me is this. While there's a lot of respect and a lot of recognition for the Detroit Lions offense, apparently the fans and the coaches in particular don't have as much recognition or value on the Detroit Lions defense because only one player got such recognition, aka being Aiden Hutchinson. I thought that was a rather intriguing combination right there because most of the time when you have a Pro Bowl roster or Pro Bowl players that are getting, recognition or something, it's usually a little bit more of an even keel, kind of like mixed bag. But not in this year's batch, so to speak. It was pretty much almost all offense for the Detroit Lions, which I was like, okay, that is really intriguing because it's like I would have thought that in that situation, the Lions would have gotten a little bit more of an even keel representation. Maybe get Jeff Okudah in there, maybe get Kirby Joseph in there. But no, apparently the only guy that from the defense that the voters thought was worthy was actually Aiden Hutchinson. I thought, okay, that's really intriguing that they have that viewpoint of that whole situation. But again, you guys tell me what you guys think. Do you guys think that Jeff Okudah, that Kirby Joseph, that somebody else from the Lions defense actually, should have made it? Let me know in the comments, y'all. I see that we got a couple of people coming in with comments. I see that Soul3110 says, let's go Lions. Absolutely. David George says, Merry Christmas to me. Absolutely, David. Merry Christmas to you as well. Josh Jackson also says, hello, fam. Hello, David. Von D Gaming says, salute to Frank Ragnow for getting selected to the Pro Bowl. Josh Jackson also says, we play as a team much like our last Pistons championship team. All we do I apologize, folks, if we are having some issues right now. It seems like I've lost my. It seems I've lost my live stream really quickly as far as the comment sections, but we shall continue on anyway. So, with that having been said, I just wanted to say that we'll move into the next topic right now, just to move on with everything. So let's move into the next topic, and that is what we realistically have. Can you all hear me? I'm sorry. I appear to have had some issues with my stream for whatever reason. It had to refresh. Something happened. I do apologize. It decided to knock out on me. I refreshed my thing. I do apologize for that. So sorry. Had to make sure y'all were paying attention. Anyway, let's move back into the stream. I do apologize for that. Let's talk about right now the one topic that I realistically, if we'd have been in last year, I would never, ever, ever wanted to have talked about. And that would have been the freaking Los Angeles Rams. And there's actually two topics today that are going to center around the Rams here. And that is going to be, the first topic is Sean McVay and Jared Goff. Now, I don't like talking about Sean McVay. I'll just say it right now. I don't like Sean McVay as an individual. I think he's contemptuous. I think he's arrogant. I think he's brash. And I personally don't like his attitude or his demeanor as a coach in the NFL. But that comes mostly with how the whole Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford trade transpired 2 years ago. Because, yeah, it's now been 2 off seasons since that trade transpired. Well, one of the things that we know for a fact is that Sean McVay very recently just talked about Jared Goff and the fact that he is happy to see him succeeding, which I was like, wait a minute here. Hold on a second. This is the same cat that we literally have seen have such an issue with the fact that he's viewed as a lesser coach than, Shanahan out in San Fran. This is the same individual that's like very, very much all about his image. I was like, the fact that he's giving credit to somebody else, I thought was rather intriguing in and of itself. But the fact that he was willing to give Jared Goff credit, that he's actually happy to see him succeeding, is like, wait a minute here. This is the same individual, right? Like, I'm not mistaking this dude for somebody else. So I actually went and I looked it up. And I actually read the words verbatim what Sean McVay said about Jared Goff, because you guys have to understand something here before I read off the quote. At this time last year, it was the complete reverse effect of where we are right now. Everything was about Matthew Stafford and the Rams. They're looking like they're going to go to the Super Bowl, blah, 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 blah. Now, and the Lions, they're looking at a top 5 draft pick. Their season's done. That was the way it was last year. This year, complete different. The Rams are done. They're eliminated from the playoffs. They've got nothing to look forward to. And now the Lions, on the other hand, they're actually fighting for a playoff spot. So the shoe's on the other foot now. And what Sean McVay had to say about Jared Goff was rather intriguing. Here's what he had to say specifically. Sean McVay said this about Jared Goff. He said Goff, has done a great job. Really, he's played good football. You can see he's playing with confidence. I think Ben Johnson has done an outstanding job of being able to kind of put them in good spots, and then Jared ultimately brings it to life. But they've really played well offensively. Again, just being a fan of the game, we've crossed over with them. I think Jared's playing at a really high level, and he's done outstanding. So there's a couple of things from that comment that I want to address really quickly. Number one, Sean Mcvay goes straight out and he says that Jared Goff, in his opinion, is playing great football. He's playing good football. He's playing with confidence, and he's playing at a really high level. That's the first thing, number one. But number two, notice at the middle section of that quote, who else he throws in there. He says, I think Ben Johnson has done an outstanding job of being able to put them in good spots, and then Jared ultimately brings it to life. With Ben Johnson, I want to make sure that we have an understanding here about Ben Johnson. I think Ben Johnson is going to be one of those guys that's going to have himself an outstandingly long career in the NFL, because in literally 1 year, Ben Johnson has established himself as an innovator, as a very creative, offensive-minded coach, and just being able to do a great job at all various levels with this Lions offense, as far as, getting the offense in the right plays, giving them a good chance every single time they play. So far, we're seeing a really, really good set of game plans from Ben Johnson. I'm not saying he's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Don't mistake what I'm saying here. But I think that Ben Johnson has been something that, while we were hoping we were going to get when he became the offensive coordinator, I don't think anybody realistically expected that Ben Johnson was going to do what he was going to do this year. I don't think anyone was expecting that level of success. But then what did Sean McVay say? He said, listen, Ben Johnson's done an outstanding job. He's putting them in good spots. But then he said, ultimately, it's up to Goff to bring the play to life. Now, why am I talking about this spot specifically? Well, let's understand something here. We've seen this very thing happen with Jared Goff on one other occasion. So now this is the second time this is happening, what I'm about to talk about. Let's go back to Goff in Los Angeles. When Goff was in Los Angeles, everybody wanted to say, oh yeah, Goff is playing really well, da-da-da-da-da-da. Said the same thing is being said right now. But ultimately, what did it go back to? Well, Goff is just taking the directions from Sean McVay. Sean McVay's the real mastermind. He's the real maestro. And Goff's just out there getting the benefit of Sean McVay's coaching, of Sean McVay's schemes. That was what was going on in Los Angeles at the time. Well, now here we are in Detroit, and while Jared Goff is definitely getting some credit this year, again, I've heard this from a lot of Lions fans in various Facebook groups. I've heard it on Twitter. I've heard it from other YouTubers. It's like more credit is going towards Ben Johnson being able to make an effective game plan and scheming than necessarily looking at Jared Goff and being like, hey, he's really taking command of this offense. He's a leader out there on offense. The players respect him. They follow what he says, and Goff's actually playing a really, really good year of football. It's once again more or less going on that Ben Johnson kind of quote-unquote resurrected Jared Goff's career, and that Jared Goff, once again, is just a benefit of Ben Johnson's schemes. And I'm like, listen, if that happened one time, and then, if Jared Goff had come in this year and Ben Johnson was still giving a really good offensive scheme and Goff was having a terrible year, then I could understand that. I could realistically get by that. But it's like, let's call it for what it is here. Jared Goff has done this under Sean McVay, and he's now done it under Ben Johnson. And what was the biggest thing we kept hearing about Jared Goff once we got him last year? He's never going to win without Sean McVay. He can't win without Sean McVay, because it was like, listen, when he had Jeff Fisher as his head coach, when they were still the St. Louis Rams for 1 year, they couldn't win. And then all of a sudden, Sean McVay comes in and they could win. And then as soon as Jared Goff left, it was the same thing. Oh, well, Jared Goff can't win without Sean McVay. And for that first year, it looked like that hypothesis, that idea was right, because it took Jared Goff 11 games before he won his first game. But I think now we have to step back. We're like, listen, while Sean McVay is no doubt in my mind one of the best offensive-minded head coaches in the business, and he's one of the best offensive minds of his generation, to simply say that Sean McVay was the literal reason, or the biggest reason, for Jared Goff's success in LA, I think that's a massive undersighting to just how good of a player Jared Goff is and how good of a quarterback he is. Because Ben Johnson is getting the same thing out of Jared Goff, and it's like, okay, Is it all because of the coaching, or is Jared Goff actually proving that he can be a good quarterback? It's a serious question that I think Lions fans seriously need to address, and they have to understand that, listen, coaching will get you a lot of things in life, but at some point it's up to the player, it's up to the quarterback in this instance to go out there, read the defenses, make the right throws, make the right decisions. You can't really say anymore that Goff is just a byproduct of Sean McVay's tutelage, because he hasn't been under Sean McVay for over 2 years. And understand something, Ben Johnson helped build this offense with Jared Goff. So Jared Goff has as much ownership on this offense as Ben Johnson does. And last I checked, Ben Johnson just calls the play. Jared Goff has to go out there and run them. So again, just a little bit of food of thought for there as to, hey, Sean McVay's giving Jared Goff credit, but at the same time, I think that there are certain Lions fans out there, certain Lions media analysts, and certain Lions YouTubers that need to put a little bit more respect on Jared Goff's name. That's just the whole point of that little segment there. The other segment about the Los Angeles Rams, and before we get to that, I want to give myself a moment to think through this one, because this next segment's got me a little hot under the collar, or as some people would like to refer to, it kind of grinds my gears, so to speak. I'm going to take a look at some of these comments really quickly. Patty Grimes says, where him and Stafford just happened to meet in Mexico, that's where he loses me. He's referring to Sean McVay. Joseph Osteen said he did us a favor. Turns out Goff can win elsewhere. That is true. That was one of the main driving points I made with that whole segment I just did. Frank Rodriguez tells me to let it go, that Sean McVay is human too. We all have our stuff. Listen, Frank, I get it. I truly do. But the reason why I have a hard time letting it go with Sean McVay is simply because, number one, Sean McVay is probably in one of the most, I wouldn't say prestigious, but he's in one of the most visible head coaching jobs in the NFL right now. Let's just call it for what it is. He's in one of the most visible head coaching jobs right now because he's in LA. LA gets a lot of media traffic. And Sean McVay has always been one of those coaches ever since he became the head coach of the Rams. Everyone's like, hey, one of the best coaches that is like very young is Sean McVay. And it's like Sean McVay always gets all of this credit for what he does, but nobody ever wanted to give Jared Goff the credit. So it's like when Sean McVay did that and pretty much cut Goff's legs out from underneath him, pretty much gave the impression to the rest of the NFL world that, listen, I'm the true mastermind here. Goff doesn't deserve any recognition. I do. The fact that Sean McVay has now come out and said, listen, Jared Goff is doing really well with the Detroit Lions. Ben Johnson's doing really well with him. I think it's finally about time that he actually gave Jared Goff some credit rather than just letting people continue to think that, hey, it was all me that was doing it. And I'm not necessarily saying that that was what he was intending, but that was the image that was being portrayed for so long while he was out there as the head coach with the Los Angeles Rams after Goff had been traded here and Matthew Stafford was the quarterback. Loretto says McVay took the keys away and for Goff and did not play to Goff's strengths. I've talked about that elsewhere, and I do believe that in those last 2 years, the Rams did not play very well to a Goff strengths. I do believe that's very true. Patty Grimes says McVay just wanted to blame Goff for them losing the Super Bowl and takes blame elsewhere. I mean, that's one of the other things I've had against him, but I'm not going to continue to go down that path. Joseph Murdoch says, happy holidays, folks. Absolutely. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Season's greetings, whichever way you'd like to put it. Make sure I'm covering everybody's bases there. Josh Jackson says Goff has always had a chance to win unless it's against Belichick. LOL. That dude just has Goff's number. I think Goff is an adequate QB for what we're doing. He's been playing great, turnover-free football. I think for the most part that you hit a nail on the head there, Josh. But I will say this: going back to the Super Bowl, which kind of got this whole mindset, this whole persona, this whole, idea that, Bill Belichick is kind of like Jared Goff's kryptonite. Let's go back to that Super Bowl really quickly here. You go back to that Super Bowl, had Brandon Cooks, one of their best wide receivers, had made 2 key catches in the end zone, you completely flip the script on who wins that football game. Because remember, the Rams lost that Super Bowl 3-13. You get those 2 touchdowns that Brandon Cooks dropped. Now, all of a sudden, you're talking about a 14-point swing right there. Now the Rams are actually in front of the Patriots, and now you got yourself a much more competitive football game. That's just a point that a lot of people seem to forget there. Plus, on top of that, you got to also understand that, Jared Goff was, even though he had Todd Gurley in that game, Todd Gurley was playing injured. He didn't have Cooper Kupp. So, again, plus on top of that, I've brought this up before, but I'm sorry. Matthew Stafford had a lesser opponent to play against in the Cincinnati Bengals in his Super Bowl versus Jared Goff going up against the New England Patriots, who had been to, 6 Super Bowls prior to that? It's like, dude, you're comparing a team that hadn't been to the Super Bowl since my dad was my age in the 1980s almost, versus a team that had been to the Super Bowl so many times that they're considered the greatest dynasty of freaking, pro football. It's like, dude, it's like you're not comparing apples to apples here. And I think that that's something that gets lost in, once again, the whole Sean McVay, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford narrative that's been built up over the last 2 years. But it is what it is. Josh Jackson says, touche. And again, I like to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. So keep the comments coming. I'll get to them as I can with moving in from segment to segment, which let's talk about the next segment. And it's talking about the Rams. So like I said, I don't like talking about the Rams unless I absolutely have to. I'm very much in agreement with Derek on this. It's like, listen, dude, I can't wait until we're done with the whole Rams pick. I can't wait till we're absolutely done dealing with that, because it's like, ever since we got those 2 first-round picks, that's all Lions fans have been centered on is what are we going to get with that extra first-round draft pick? What are we going to get? And it's like, listen, I get it. It's exciting to have an extra first-round draft pick because it's something new that Lions fans haven't had in a long time. But it's like, dude, we focus and fixate so much on that extra first-round draft pick, we lose sight of everything else here. Well, here's the thing. Remember how I said earlier in this show that last year the Lions are kind of in the position of where the Rams are right now? The Rams aren't going to the playoffs. The Lions actually have a chance to go to the playoffs, whereas last year the Rams were definitely in the playoffs and we were definitely not in the playoffs. Who here remembers that whole Detroit Rams nonsense? That Detroit Rams crap that was absolutely an insult to all serious hardliner Detroit Lions fans? Like, I never forgot that, and I never will. That right there was by far the biggest insult in my mind to true diehard Lions fans. It's like, listen, I get it. You want your boy Matthew Stafford to win the Super Bowl. It's like, listen, I'm all about Matthew Stafford going out and getting his Super Bowl. I truly was. But it's like this whole idea, this whole concept, if you will, that you have to start combining 2 separate franchises logos into one logo where you have the Lions body and the Rams head. And you're now saying, oh, well, we're Detroit Rams fans. It's like, dude, that is absolute anathema to me. We're Detroit Lions fans, period. Period. There is no such thing as Detroit Rams. I'm sorry, there's no franchise out there that's called Detroit Rams. There's no team out there that's called the Detroit Rams. I'm sorry, that team never existed. That team never will exist. But yet you had fans out there that were so willing to accept that identity so they had something to root for, something to say that, hey, we're a part of this. It literally didn't last. And it literally made no sense. You're talking about something that doesn't exist except in those fans, except in those fans' feeble imaginations for what they were. And on top of that, it was copyright infringement because you were combining 2 logos of the NFL into one. So you were taking 2 separate things that were copyrighted and making them into something that was, again, an anathema. It's like, dude, it's like, this is not cool, especially if you're a Lions fan. And I was so glad when Stafford won the Super Bowl, and very shortly afterwards, when Stafford won the Super Bowl, that was it. The Detroit Rams phenomenon, as it was done. It was gone. Like, didn't even have to worry about that nonsense anymore. The shirts, they quickly disappeared. The whole thing that was known as Detroit Rams was going nuts over that. It was done and over with almost as quickly as it came around. And I was like, okay, fine. We're strictly done with the Detroit Rams. And I thought that was the end of it. Nope. No. We aren't done with it now. And I see exactly what you're saying, Galloping Lake 6. For crying out loud, Woodward Sports had to go out and just be absolutely ridiculous. This is why this is one of the biggest reasons why I teamed up with Derek and why I'm doing this show, because I cannot for the life of me understand how Woodward Sports can be considered a serious radio show or television show, sports networking show. I can't understand how they can be considered serious. And it's like, dude, this is what I'm talking about, and Galloping Lake 6 knows exactly where I'm talking about this. Now it's not the Detroit Rams. It's now the Los Angeles Lions. It's absolutely just ridiculous. And here's exactly what I mean right now. I'm going to try and show you guys a picture of this really quickly, and I'm going to share the screen of what you guys can see really quickly. So that way you guys can understand what the thunder I'm talking about here. And here it is right here. I'm going to put it up so that way you guys can see it really quickly. This is what it is right here. It's the, sorry here. I actually have to pull down the new era things really quickly. So I'm just going to pull this, this layout really quick, this overlay down really quickly, just so that way you guys can actually see it. So here it is right here. That is the new thing, the Los Angeles Lions. That comes straight from Woodward Sports. That is what they're putting out there now, the Los Angeles Lions. And I can't believe it. Like, I can't seriously believe it. I can't. It's like you literally, we got over this last year. We seriously got over it last year with the whole Detroit Rams bull crap. I'm sorry. That was what we got over. And then all Woodward Sports did with putting out the Los Angeles Lions was completely revive that nonsense. They completely brought it back. All they simply did was put a new image and a new name on it and said, hey, now we're back to this. But the reversal of the role is now that you have Rams fans that are bandwagon fans for the Lions. And it's like, wait a minute here. Hold on. It's like, why can't you just have fans say that, yes, we're part of this fan base, but we're rooting for this fan base's teams, so that way we've got something to root for. Why is it that we have to have this whole concept of, oh, well, we're now Los Angeles Lions fans, like it was the Detroit Rams fans last year? It's like, dude, you're a Los Angeles Rams fan that is rooting for the Detroit Lions. That is what you are. You're not a Los Angeles Lion. There's no such thing. There's no such team that's ever existed. And Woodward Sports had to go out there and say, oh, funny ha-ha situation from last year. Let's put our own spin on it and give it new life, breathe new life back into this whole crazy situation all over again. It's like, dude, and I get exactly what you're saying, Galloping Lake 6. It's a parody to the Detroit Rams, but it's like, dude, parody or not, that should never have ever come back. It's like, dude, the Detroit Rams to any serious Lions fan was an absolute slap in the face. And parody or not, like I just said, breathing life back into that whole thing again is just like, dude, you guys did not learn your lesson the last time. Because here's the thing I know about the internet, folks. Here's how I know the internet is both the greatest thing in the world and also the worst thing in the world. Here's how I know this for a fact. Because here's the thing. Somebody showed me that image. I actually didn't find that image firsthand on my own or organically. I didn't find that all by myself. Somebody actually shared that to me. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, you have to be kidding me. Like, seriously? And here's how I know that this is a problem. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have some group of fans out there from the Rams side of things that are going to look at that. And you're also going to have some Lions fans out there that are going to look at that and they'll be like, hey, yeah, let's get that out there. Let's do something with it. Let's make t-shirts again and all this, because that's what people do. People will latch onto something, some crazy idea, just so that way they can feel quote unquote special about something. That way they have something to themselves. And it's like, listen, I get what Woodward was trying to do there, but it's like, dude, That was one of those situations where you should have just left well enough alone. Just leave it alone. Let it lie. Let it stay dead. Don't bring it back. And the funny thing about it is that picture was from their Twitter feed. So it's like, I know that quite a lot of people saw it because Woodward has quite a lot of Twitter followers. So I was like, yep, this is going to start edging out and people are going to start bringing it up and it's going to be absolute pandemonium all over again with this whole topic. And I'm just here to tell you all, I don't appreciate it. I don't like it. Anybody that's as serious as a Rams fan as they are a Lions fan should not get on board with that concept. They are two separate franchises. They are two separate entities. Keep them separate. Do not combine the two. I am no more a Los Angeles Rams fan as I am a Detroit Rams fan or a Los Angeles Lions fan. We are two separate groups. Keep the Rams fans. Keep the Lions fans. That's it. Done and over with. Now, I told you I was animated on that one because I literally had so much problems with the Detroit Rams nonsense from last year that seeing that parody, I lost it. I literally lost it. We got ourselves some comments here. We're going to take a look at them really quickly. Daniel, wait a minute. Hold on. That's not where we're at here. Okay, here we go. Joseph Murdoch says, go Miami against Green Bay, go Lions. Absolutely. I'm sorry. I don't like Green Bay to begin with. And I sure as thunder hope that Miami puts a hurting on Green Bay. I want them to lose so that way they're out of the playoff race and they've got nothing to fight for. Galloping Lake 6 says, Sean McVay also got credit for helping Kirk Cousins become a top quarterback with the Redskins. Now they're known as the Washington Commanders. Yet Cousins has been a Pro Bowler for the Vikings without McVay. That is very true. I did forget about that, Galloping Lake 6. That is a very good point. Patty Grimes says, if the Rams win a Super Bowl, no Stafford trade, no Goff, no Jamo, no Will Anderson, no Iffy. Yeah, those are all things that getting that trade, getting that Super Bowl win, those are all things that have transpired that have helped out the Lions. That is a good point. Daniel Todd says, sup, David, it's your guy. Go Lions, go. Yep, absolutely. Thank you for joining the show, my friend. Patty Grimes says that those fans that are all about the Los Angeles Lions and all that are bandwagons fans. Joseph Murdoch says the only team the Lions have any affiliation with is the Portsmouth Spartans, and they haven't been called the Portsmouth Spartans since before 1934. That was the last time that they were known. That was 1933 onward. When 1934 hit, that was when they stopped being the Spartans and become the Detroit Lions. Josh Jackson says, I was upset that they pitted us against Stafford the very next season when our team was in shambles and couldn't be very competitive. You see, again, that goes, Josh, I understand that. You might have been upset, but you knew that was going to happen. Like, you seriously knew it was going to happen. Think about it. What was the very first game in week 1 that was pitted? It was Russell Wilson and the Broncos going up against the Seattle Seahawks. Typically, whenever you have a quarterback that gets traded in a massive trade in the offseason, the NFL schedule holders or schedule creators, they will pit that quarterback against their old team because it's a good storyline narrative and they want to make money. That's a narrative that they're going to make money from. Joseph Murdoch says, from Woodward Sports, you say that explains it. Absolutely. Trust me. I'm trying to keep this kid friendly, so to speak. Mr. Poole says that idea is a doorway to bandwagon fans. Sid B. Fit says because it's good for marketing and revenue. Being able to tap into another market off a gimmick in our meme culture isn't a bad idea, just distasteful, I think. Oh, it's more than distasteful. It's downright disrespectful, in my opinion. Galloping Lake 6 says Rams fans are wishing they had Goff in the team like the Detroit Lions. They're wishing they had it because this goes back to another concept, another topic I've talked about in the past about how, yeah, the Rams went out and they got themselves their Super Bowl. They mortgaged everything they had to go out and get their Super Bowl. Great, grand, glorious, absolutely congratulations. Outstanding. You went out and you got your Super Bowl. You shot your shot. You got it. But the problem is that now they don't have anything really solid underneath that to continue going forward. They just simply don't have anything solid underneath it. They just don't. And that's probably the biggest problem for the Rams organization right now. They don't have any draft picks going forward. They don't have any solid players to build around because either they've traded them away, they've lost them, they haven't been able to replace them, whatever have you. So the Rams right now are in a real bind because they have all these players to bloated contracts, and they don't have a way to, find other talent to play alongside them. And that's because they've traded away draft picks over the years. They haven't been able to replenish their ranks, and that's the problem that the Rams are running into right now. And Joseph Murdoch, I totally agree with you. The Rams will be in total rebuild going forward. And see, the Rams haven't been in rebuild phase in almost 6-7 years. And for those 6 or 7, and since those 6 or 7 years, all the Rams have been trying to do is literally win that Super Bowl in one glorious meltdown. Well, they finally got it, and now they're facing the meltdown phase of what's happening. That's what happened. Joseph Osteen says he says, screw the Rams. The Lions are in the middle of a historic run. I feel great and enjoying the success. In addition, the mock drafts are fun. That extra pick makes for lots of scenarios. Absolutely. Yes, it does. And Joseph Murdoch says the Rams have no picks, no cap, and a broken Stafford. I mean, that's a perfect summation right there. But anyway, okay. Let's move past the Rams. I'm done talking about the Rams. The only reason I decided to talk about them on today's show was because it had actual direct connection to the Lions in some oddball way or another. Let's actually talk about something else that's a little bit more closer to home, say the NFC North. It's Aaron Rodgers. Now, again, I just said a couple of minutes ago, I do not like the Green Bay Packers. I simply don't. I've never liked the Green Bay Packers. I've never liked their fans and their smug attitude. I've never liked how Aaron Rodgers has had this higher, holier-than-thou mindset that he is the greatest thing since sliced bread when it comes to playing the game of quarterback. And since he has that higher, holier-than-thou mindset, he thinks that every other team in the NFC North is pretty much beneath him, especially the Bears. But now, also, I would throw in the Detroit Lions. There is a contempt about him when it comes to Detroit. And here's what I mean. You go back to Monday Night Football. The Packers, they're playing the Rams. Last time I hopefully have to say their name on this show, but the Packers are playing them. The Packers win 24-10. It's the end of the game. Aaron Rodgers goes and he talks with the female reporter for the post-game, on-field, interview or whatever. And the interview is winding down. And what happens? The female reporter says, hey, you guys just won this game. The next 3 opponents you have coming up, all of them are over 500. What do you have to say to that? Well, here's the thing. Aaron Rodgers made a correction, and it wasn't an actual correction. He was correct. He said one of those teams is not above 500, and he was specifically referencing us. But if y'all have watched the clip, you know that how Aaron Rodgers said that was a sign of contempt for the Detroit Lions. And let's understand why it was a sign of contempt for the Lions. This goes back to freaking week 9 when Aaron Rodgers came to town to play the Lions at Ford Field, and the Lions defense made his life absolutely miserable. Made his life miserable. That was one of the worst games that we have ever seen from Aaron Rodgers. And he literally got destroyed by 2 rookies. He got destroyed by Kirby Joseph for 2 separate interceptions, and he got destroyed by Aiden Hutchinson for another interception. In that game, Aaron Rodgers had 1 touchdown throw to 3 interceptions. It's one of the worst games Aaron Rodgers has ever had as a quarterback. And now, that game was literally what sparked the turnaround, so to speak, for here in Detroit. Now, why am I specifically going back to that game? The reason I'm going back to that game is because after that game in the locker room afterwards, and even after the game itself had been completely gone and he had moved on back to his part of the world, he would not give the Detroit Lions defense credit for beating him. He wouldn't do it. He actually refused to. He's like, listen, I don't think they beat us. I think we beat ourselves. And it's like, dude, it's like, are you that high on yourself? Are you that puffed up about yourself that you simply will not give credit to an opposing defense actually doing their job and getting the better of you? It's like, I get it. The Lions were not good when we played them at the time. We had just won our 2nd game, but it's like, dude, Our team showed up to play. Yours did not. You did not. Give the Lions the actual credit they deserve. They deserve to get credit. They deserve to get kudos for actually beating you, and not just beating you, but beating you well, beating you convincingly. But Aaron Rodgers wouldn't do that. In fact, he made every attempt he could to say, we did not lose to them. We beat ourselves. And it's like, dude, it's like that was one of the worst things he could ever do, because it's like, listen, at that point, that just cements the idea that Aaron Rodgers is a sore loser. He is. He's a sore loser. He's not only a sore loser, he's also a sore winner, because when he wins, oh my Lord, how that guy loves to gloat. He loves to gloat. But when he loses, he turns into a child. He literally does. He becomes very gloomy. He becomes very melancholy about it, and he never wants to talk about it. It's like, whatever. We beat ourselves. They didn't beat us. And it's like, dude, it's like, actually give credit where credit is due. You got beat. We owned you that day, but you don't want to talk about it. Well, now you have to add in the comments that happened after Monday Night Football. Oh, well, one team's not over 500. It's like, dude, you could have let that comment well enough alone. You could have left it alone. But no, Aaron Rodgers had to make sure specifically to talk about Detroit and say, oh, well, they're the only one that's not above 500. And it's like, dude, everybody knew we weren't above 500. But you had to be that one individual that literally had to say that we weren't above 500 just so that way you could say it. It's like, dude, there comes a time and a place when you don't have to say certain things. At that point in time, you didn't have to say it. You could have just left it well enough alone. It probably would have gotten picked up on the news cycles the next day that the lady was wrong. She was misspeaking. But no, you had to take that comment and you had to make it into something bigger. You had to make it into something bigger than what it was by making sure that you made not only sure that you corrected her, but said, yeah, I know that there's a team that's not above 500, and I know who that team is. And it's like, dude, I get it. You own the quote-unquote Bears, and you do that freaking discount double-check championship belt nonsense every time you go and play the Bears. I get it. But it's like, dude, it's like, what have the Lions ever done to you? In fact, you have done more to the Lions in, screwing them over with the Hail Mary that happened at the end of one game. You've had more chances to ruin the Lions over the years than the Lions have ever done to you. But yet it's like you seem to find contempt with the Lions, and it's like, dude, I don't even know why. Like, that's the one thing about Aaron Rodgers that I simply don't understand. It's like that dude just has a natural knack for just being petty. Like, I'll just put it for what it is. He's petty. He's very petty. And for a guy that's won, however many MVPs it is, he's won a freaking Super Bowl and all these accolades. He is very petty with people when he doesn't feel like he gets the recognition that he should deserve. And it's like, dude, you're a full-grown man. You're almost 40 years old, and you're still acting childish at times. It's like, dude, it's like sometimes I look at Aaron Rodgers, and it's like, now I know why you're not married. Like, to me, it's just like, it is what it is. And that's why I don't like the Packers. Not necessarily because I just don't like them in general, but it's like, dude, the fact that the Packers have put up with Aaron Rodgers for as long as they have and they keep coming back for more, it's like, dude, y'all are just freaking gluttons for punishment. It's like, you guys should have moved on from him. You guys should have really moved on from him and moved into your next era, your next phase of the franchise. But it's like now you've got reports that Jordan Love, their backup quarterback, is like, listen, either Aaron Rodgers goes or I go, because he wants to move on with his career. He wants to actually play. And Jordan Love wisely realizes that as long as Aaron Rodgers is there, he's never going to get a chance to play, because Aaron Rodgers is never going to just willingly sit on the sideline. He's never going to do it. And if you're a quarterback, you realize one thing first and foremost: there's only ever one quarterback on the field at any given time. There's only one starter. And Jordan Love wants to play. And he's been sitting behind Aaron Rodgers now for the last 2-3 years or something. He wants to play. He's tired of waiting. Let's take a look at some of these comments here really quickly. Galloping Lake 6 says that he was amazed at the Pro Bowl selection. Almost the entire alternate team are composed of Detroit Lions. Again, like I've said, the Lions, while I didn't get a whole lot of actual quote-unquote selections to the Pro Bowl, they got a lot of recognition because a lot of alternates are Detroit Lions, which means as things go further along, players get injured, Some players are going to go to the Super Bowl. Those slots are going to start opening up for other Lions to go to said Pro Bowl. Frank Rodriguez says that Woodward Sports are a bunch of jack ninnies. Okay. Joseph Murdoch says that Aaron Rodgers is a kaput. Okay. Marcus Robinson says, "What up, doe people? We're gonna run the table. Go Lions and Jared Goff." Absolutely. Let's keep that enthusiasm up. Let's keep the motor hot, and let's keep running through to the end of the year. Patty Grimes says that the Lions need to put Aaron Rodgers in his place. Mr. Poole says, need to go into Green Bay and put Rodgers on ice, no pun intended, whether they're playing for a spot or just trying to spoil. I definitely agree with you there, Mr. Poole. Patty Grimes also says, Aaron Rodgers, your team's not above 500. Worry about your own team and not the Lions. I love that comment. Josh Jackson says, I will always consider the Packers our main rival arch enemy, brother, not the Vikings. Again, I'll say this right now. Out of all the NFC North teams, the Packers are arch rival number 1. Bears are arch rival number 2. And then the Vikings are just another rival because it's like, listen, the Vikings, like, we seem to be doing pretty well against them as of late. Same thing with the Bears, but I just don't like the Bears because the Bears are also a sometimes very snooty, very snotty a franchise because they also have long-standing roots in history. Joseph Murdoch says, one game at a time. However, the last game should be the beatdown of the season just because it's Green Bay and Aaron is running his mouth again. I agree. Let's see here. Patty Grimes says the fake hands to the face on Trey Flowers against the Packers. Yep, that was another one where the Lions got screwed out of a game over some stupid penalties. Joseph Murdoch says one good thing is the Lions are hot and Vegas is in love with the Lions right now. The refs will let them play. David Grabble says, hey, I'm new to your show, but I love it. Go Lions, baby. Absolutely, David. That actually brings me to a point here. Make sure you guys like the show. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel. We're trying to grow. We're trying to compete against Woodward Sports, but only we're going to be able to do that with you guys, the fans. So I'm so thankful for you guys that are watching the show. I'm so thankful to you guys that have come over from my personal channel, that have come to this one that I'm starting up and given love and support to this channel. You guys are absolutely amazing, and I'm so thankful for each and every one of you. But I also encourage you guys to share this show with other Facebook groups, with other people. Let's spread the show. Let's get it out there. Let's get Syndicate Sports Detroit being a talk of the town. Let's keep growing it. Patty Grimes says, Love under contract one more year. Yeah, I get Jordan Love's under contract for one more year, but it's like, listen, the Packers really have to make a decision here because it's like, listen, you've got Jordan Love under contract, but you've also got Aaron Rodgers, who is getting older. You did sign him to a contract, and it's like, listen, eventually you're going to have to make a decision here. Do you decide to move forward with Jordan Love, or are you just going to continue to stay hitched with Aaron Rodgers? And the point of the matter is Jordan Love, he wants to play. He's tired of waiting. He wants to play. So for me, it's like, listen, I think the Packers, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to say it. I think the Packers might be one of those teams that in like another year, maybe 2, you're going to see them draft a first-round quarterback again. I can see it happening. I can see it happening. Lions Mania says, what's up, David? Not much, man. You know, just having a good time here with New Era Lions. I am sorry that I started a little bit late. I am sorry that I had a little bit of a technological hiccup at the beginning of the show, but it seems like we've worked it out. Lots of Power says, sup, everyone? How's it going, Lots of Power? Glad to see you're here. Dave Gravel says, I wasn't sure about Love, but last game he played, he looked pretty good. Again, Jordan Love, I think, has had one of the best benefits in that, listen, as much as I don't like Aaron Rodgers as an individual, you cannot deny the man is talented as a quarterback. The guy plays the game of football almost as good as any other quarterback I've seen. Like I said, I don't like him personally, but I will not deny that the man has the ability to play football as a quarterback at an extremely high level. And Jordan Love has definitely benefited from sitting underneath him and learning what he can from Rodgers. Let's see here. Lions Mania says, be safe out there, David. I'm pretty confident I'm going to be okay. Let's see here. Born in Spain, Van says, would trade the number 4 Rams pick, 2 seconds and a third of the Panthers for their number 1 and Brian Burns. Ooh, I'm going to be honest with you, Born in Spain. I'm not digging of that because I like Brian Burns as a player, But draft picks, you can mold those players. You can build the team the way we've done it the last 2 draft cycles. We've been doing so good lately because of how well we've drafted. And the way I look at it is, in order to make a draft, a trade package like that, like you literally have to have almost nobody on the board that you're interested in. It's like, dude, at the number 4 pick on the board, there's going to be players available that the Lions are going to want, because I realistically think that you're going to see 2 quarterbacks go within the top 5. I sincerely think that. And I also think that the Lions are going to have a shot to draft either one of the 2 big defensive playmakers this year, either Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. They're going to have a shot to draft either one of them. So I see your second comment there, Born in Spain. I don't think C.J. Stroud is going to be the only option left on the board for the Lions. And I don't think, again, the Lions are going to draft a quarterback this year. I think they are going to have a shot to take either Anderson or Carter, and they're going to take their shot on either Anderson or Carter. Lions Mania says, I would rather keep my draft picks and build through the draft because that's where we're seeing real progress at. Absolutely. Twan says, trade down with the Rams pick and get the best cornerback and best linebacker. Again, that's not a problem in my mind, but again, you could still get the best cornerback in the draft with the Lions draft pick as it is right now, their actual traditional draft pick. Because, example, where are the Lions right now on the draft boards for their own pick? I think they're like number 15, number 16. They're somewhere around there. That's still a good spot to where you could get Joey Porter Jr. You could still get him there. So for me, it's like, I don't think the Lions need to trade down anywhere. I think being in the spot that they're at the top of the first and in the middle of the first, they have a good shot to get any player that they're looking for, especially on defense, because Joey Porter, yes, we know he's going to go in the first round. We just don't know where. And there's other good corners this year. Or you could go linebacker, as you're suggesting, Twan, and you could get some guy like Jack Campbell from Iowa. He's the one linebacker I'm really in love with in this draft. And Twan says we're 18. Well, that's great. That means we're literally right outside of where the playoff marker is. But again, I'm not going to talk about draft nearly as much right now because, again, way too many variables, way too many things still not settled in the NFL. So I'm going to table that conversation to a later date. However, though, I'm also going to table this conversation because we have reached our 1 hour limit. And I want to say thank you all for joining into another episode, another show of the New Era Lions with me. You guys are absolutely amazing fans. I absolutely thank you all for tuning in and watching the show. Again, please subscribe to Syndicate Sports Detroit. Please send a like to the show and to also Syndicate Sports Detroit and to other channels that Derek has, such as Detroit Lions Syndicate and other places as well. He works very hard. He's an absolutely outstanding personality. Loretto says, how come are your Twitter and info in the description? My Twitter and info in the description. I don't know if are you asking where is or how come it isn't, because my Twitter info I'm not going to put on this channel. If you want to figure that out, you can go to my Lions channel. That's my own personal one. That's Detroit Lions Forum. Oh, you're saying not. Well, how come it's not? Well, see, here's the thing. I'm not trying to build my own brand here for Detroit Lions Forum. That's my own personal channel. If you want to go to that channel, then you can go there. This is not about me building my own brand. If people know me, I'm going to constantly, drop that, hey, this is my other channel. If you want more content by me, you can go there. But here is New Era Lions. Here is Syndicate Sports Detroit. Detroit Lions Forum is just the personality, the personal handle I go by on my other channel. That's the only reason I don't do it. But anyway, folks, so this is another episode of the New Era Lions. The only reason we're doing it today is because I didn't want to do this on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. That's more going to be spending time with the family. But anyway, I just want to say thank you all for tuning into the show. We should be back to our normal regular broadcast on Saturday next week with the holidays having been finished. But until that time, y'all, thank you all for tuning into the show. I'm really appreciative for all the things you guys are doing for this channel and for myself and for my show. Thank you guys, and I'll see you all next Saturday. Same time, same place. And with that, folks, I just want to say God bless, and until then, adios.